Does Shane have a lot of videos up? I only saw the one.
I think he's up to like 10 maybe.
Oh wow, I need to watch those.
And they're kind of, he's quite good at, there's a variety, they're not all just like inking or whatever. Some of them are penciling, there's one that's effectively a tutorial on cross-hatching.
So he narrates them while he's doing it?
Some of them, not all of them.
Okay.
Some of them are time-lapse videos.
Okay.
And that's just music.
Mm-hmm.
Weird thing, he kept calling cross-hatching cross-hatchling.
Hatchling?
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if it was like a joke or if it's a Pacific Northwest thing. I just couldn't tell.
Yeah, maybe. Hatchling.
If it was a joke, it was delivered very dryly.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does have kind of a robotic sense of humor. Like, he has a sense of humor, but it's hard to tell because sometimes he's not, like, doesn't let on.
Right.
It's beyond dry.
He is a kind of dry character. Yeah. I love his work.
He's amazing at, like, all kinds of different
Right,
styles.
but he's seen as an old-fashioned kind of artist.
Yeah.
Which I think he's he's an artist. If you know the craft,
mm-hmm.
you can really appreciate the skill that he brings to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't play well with a lot of modern audiences, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I wish he got more work.
I agree.
Dan Panosian. That's the guy I was trying to think of. Just suddenly came to me.
From what?
When we were talking yesterday about... Oh, I'm not sure if you were in on that conversation. I was talking about oh, no, that's right. No, somebody was praising The Long Haul. Somebody brought along a copy of The Long Haul to the signing.
Okay.
That was the book that Eduardo Barreto drew, the Western.
Yeah.
And I was saying, like, how it was such the right book for him, and I loved how Eduardo had that kind of old school, almost European style that you just don't see anymore.
Right.
And I was trying to think of, like, apart from one guy, and I just could not fucking remember his name. Dan was the guy I was trying to think of. Do you know what I mean? That sort of almost...
Yes.
Like 1960s Italian pen and ink style.
He has that. He has equal parts that, and he can also, especially now, he's been really drawing on that kind of Jack Davis Mad Magazine exaggeration in there too. But
right.
He does that. Yeah. I hate saying old school, but it
is old school. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't either.
Because there are so few people doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is that lovely. He's one of the few guys whose work looks great in black and white.
Yeah.
Which is the same with Shane. It doesn't need colour because he brings such lovely texture and variety to the line.
Right.
I tried to get Dan to draw a book of mine at Image, but he was just like way too busy.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. And it's not like I could pay him a lot.
Yeah.
I'm offering to pay him something, but
yeah,
nowhere near what he'd normally get.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's another thing I haven't tried to spearhead my own thing yet is because of I got all the finances.
Yep.
It's flying without a net. Dave Stokes is watching. You know Dave Stokes?
The name rings a bell.
He's in England too. He's an artist. He does a lot of layouts for me.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Yeah, I love Dampino's and stuff. I feel like I don't see that a lot either, though. His work.
No, he's doing. What is he doing at the moment? I can't remember. I know that he's doing something. You know,
tweets art a lot, but I don't know what it's for.
Right. I know he's doing something. You know, sort of good, steady work. I just can't think what it is. But I had no idea that he was like one of the original Image studio guys.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about it until you just mentioned it. You're right. He's been around since then.
Yeah, he was like, I think he worked in Sylvester's studio.
Yeah,
maybe?
He's changed a lot artistically.
Well, sure, yeah. But, you know, in a good way.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I had no idea until I met him at New York a couple of years ago. I was in Artist Alley. I was chatting to somebody whose table was literally next to Dan's. And that was after I'd been emailing with him and, you know, inquired about him, working with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I said hi and introduced myself. But it was at that moment that I was like, you're not a young, up-and-coming artist, are you? You've been around a long time.
Yeah.
And then when I looked into it, I was like, oh, that's why. This was all shit that I didn't read in the 90s, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, and you're right, his style now is much looser and more sort of natural feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, you know, I love.
Yeah, well, everybody was drawn a certain way back then.
Oh, yeah. Well, and partly for me, it's because of growing up with the British industry, the way, I mean, you think that it's like a production line here.
Yeah.
The British industry, guys were penciling and inking themselves a page a day, every day. And sometimes more than that, you know, because they were doing stuff for titles like 2000 AD, where a chapter is 5 or 6 pages and it's published weekly. So everything was not rushed, but everything was kind of wasn't laboured over.
Yeah.
You know, it was like draw it and get it out. The storytelling is the most important thing, much more so than fine details and, you know, that sort of thing.
Right.
And that's what I grew up reading, so I can't help having an affinity for that style of art.
Yeah, I have a book in here. It's one of my favorite books. Let me find it. Way the studio's missing. Yeah. How to Draw and Sell Comic Strips by Alan McKenzie.
Oh yeah.
And that's really how I got into British comic art, is because he really goes in depth about the differences between what he calls the American and the UK, and then he calls there's like a continental style.
Right, yeah, which there is.
Yeah, and it's really cool.
2000 AD used to employ a lot of concept European artists because they were fast, cheap. They were used to working in that sort of, you know, style.
Yeah. We have a lot of that with South American now.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool. I didn't even know it existed. A lot of Steve Parkhouse art in there, I think.
Yeah, Parkhouse is good as well.
Dave Stokes asked, where did you kidnap another Brit? Yeah, well, he just came of his own accord.
Wait, how does he know I'm here? Did you tweet that?
Oh, he can hear you.
Oh! You didn't warn me that I was being
sorry.
Now I'm thinking back.
No, you didn't say anything. I've done it to the studio guys a couple of times. They don't like it. Mostly because they're always complaining about other professionals, which is, you know, it's not a nice thing to do that to somebody. But, yeah, have you heard of Antony Johnston, Dave?
writer of many comics and other things.
Don't worry, Dave. I won't be offended if you say no.
Dave says the name rings a bell. I think he might be being sarcastic. I think he knows who you are. Dave's just jealous that he and Mark Lamming aren't the only British guys I know.
I know Mark. I've met
Oh,
Mark.
do you?
Yeah, I've met Mark at many cons. Again, we almost, we talked about doing a book together a while ago. It never really came together. But,
Yeah.
But he's another guy who, I love his style and I would have loved to work with.
He's always busy now, too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, yeah. His schedule's even crazier than mine.
Yeah. It's a pretty introductory book there, but it was, for me, it was kind of mind-blowing.
Well, just seeing all the different styles.
Yeah, because I got that at a real young age, and I didn't know anything about that stuff. I was still getting used to Steve Ditko and
Right.
guys over here.
Well, and there's some really great examples in here as well.
Yeah.
Of a real variety of artists. I'm glad that I just noticed that he included a Modesty Blaze strip in one example.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, that's a perfect example of what I was talking about. If you take any sort of single frame of a Modesty Blaze strip in isolation and just sort of look at it from a craft point of view, there's probably going to be errors.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be like slight anatomical errors and forced perspective errors and that sort of thing. But you don't notice them in the reading.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just paying attention to the storytelling, and they were done so quickly.
Yeah.
For the newspaper strips, so. And then he throws in a page from Brian Bolland,
Mm-hmm.
which completely,
Yeah.
it's completely the antithesis of everything I was talking about.
Right.
There's a man who, manages to combine great storytelling with amazing draftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
But, he'd tell you himself by his own admission, as a result, makes him slow.
Yeah. He and Gibbons were the first I ever heard of, doing the digital thing.
Yeah.
And Bolland was doing it the crazy hard way back in the day, like drawing tapered feathering with in Illustrator and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Was it Illustrator or was it Photoshop? He was doing something crazy, though.
Right.
Because that's all of his inking is that crazy feathering.
Yep. Yeah, Brian did go full digital for a while as well.
Yeah.
when he was doing Vertigo covers and stuff in the 90s and 2000s. But then I believe he went back to pen and ink.
Yeah.
About, I think maybe about 10 years ago. Partly because he realised he had no originals to sell.
Yeah, that may be the only downside. That and losing all your work in a catastrophic hard drive failure or something.
Well, yeah, that's what Backblaze is for.
Yeah, yeah.
But Dave is kind of, he's the holy grail. He's, an amazing draftsman and a great storyteller, and he's fast.
Yeah.
There's a reason that he's one of the most celebrated artists in the country.
Yeah.
And also a really, really lovely guy to boot.
I had dinner with him. Of course, I had to win it. I won a Wacom raffle at San Diego.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they said the prize is you get to have dinner with Dave Gibbons. I can bring a guest. And Jenny Frizen is a huge fan.
Right.
And she said, I want to go. Take me to dinner to see Dave Gibbons. And so we ended up having Indian
fantastic
in San Diego with him. And he is a pleasure.
Oh, he's just the nicest guy.
Dave says that contest sounds fixed.
He's only saying that because he didn't win.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's the Parkhouse pages.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Lovely. The energy in them is wonderful, isn't it?
And that's, I think, right around then when I started. I mean, I was always attracted to, cartoony-ish artists, but the guys that could combine the naturalism, that classic comic art has, plus that energy that being a straight-up, animation sort of.
Right.
That's just such magic. I mean, there are guys that do it so well, and
that was part of what made Frank Miller so good. With the Daredevil and Batman stuff, was he had that. It's he'd got that kind of. It was. I mean, there was a certain amount of exaggeration, but it was mostly naturalistic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
But still had that amazing energy. I did notice earlier there were some samples of his Daredevil work in here. Seen with Daredevil and Bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, actually, there were several. There's a whole section on whiteout and X-Acto knives.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That really dates the book, doesn't it?
Oh, I think there might be stuff about Ruby Lith and stuff in there.
Really?
There might be.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a really old book.
My first jobs in design agencies were bromides and Ruby Lith.
Yeah.
Lick and stick, as we used to call it.
Yeah, that stuff was gone even when I got in there. I mean, yeah, we had to learn it in college, but
yep, same here.
By the time I got there, it's like it was gone. And it sucks that I had to learn it, but at the same time, I didn't want to do that stuff. I'm glad that it was gone.
Exactly the same. When I left college and started in agencies, Macs were a thing, but they weren't
Yeah.
the ubiquitous thing
Yeah.
that they have become.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were still doing traditional bromide and even letraset stuff for a few years. But then you know, after maybe 4 or 5 years after I left college, it was just that was just gone. Nobody did that anymore.
The first place I was at still had one of those huge PMT machines.
Yeah,
It was like I was literally taking pictures of stuff.
Yep, size of a fucking car.
Yeah.
We had one of those. But, you know, I mean, and maybe this is just my own old-fashioned bias talking, but I'm not sorry that I learned
Oh, no.
the traditional stuff in college, because it gives you a good appreciation of balancing and thinking about a design before you actually commit to it, rather than just slapping stuff down and then moving it around on your screen.
There's a whole sort of like thought process that goes behind designing that way when you're pasting up on literally pasting up.
Yep.
You don't think about when you have the computer able to do stuff for you.
Well, and when you can just erase errors or change your mind, you know, on a whim. That said, I would hate to now still be writing on the manual typewriter. That I learned to write on when I was like 12 years old. So, like I say, that's why I'm aware that there's probably kind of a bit of a bias there, because as a writer, there's no way I'd want to not have the ability to move stuff around.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, have the undo function and stuff. Because I did that when I I literally grew up learning to type on a manual typewriter. Not even an electric, but an actual mechanical manual.
Yeah, we had an electric Ogilvy that was like the very beginning stages of the word processor, where it would save like a line or a paragraph. Yeah. And that was actually more of a headache than if you were just doing it manually.
Yeah. As a birthday treat to myself a few years ago, I think it might have been my 40th. I can't actually remember that. I sought out the exact model of manual typewriter that I first learned to type on.
Oh, yeah.
I found an old model on eBay. Same model, same colour even.
Was it expensive?
No. That was what amazed me. Was it cost me like, what would it be in dollars? Maybe like $70?
Yeah.
Which
that's not bad at all.
Yeah, for a typewriter that, you know, hasn't been manufactured for 30 years, it is really not that bad. And yeah, now it sits on a shelf in my study.
There are not a lot of them, but there are a few, like, if you walk up and down streets like this, you'll see storefronts that claim to fix things like that. Right. And I always wonder if that's a real thing or if it's some kind of front for organized crime or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember reading, I think a few years ago, about the last factory in the world that made manual typewriters was ceasing production. I think it was in India.
Oh, I think Julie told me about that.
And it was now there is literally nobody in the world making typewriters.
Crazy.
That said, when I got that typewriter off eBay, naturally, because it came with a ribbon, so naturally the first thing I did was put a sheet of paper in it and, you know, try typing a couple of sentences. And oh my God, my fingers are so weak. They've atrophied over the years. I was like, how did I ever use this thing?
Yeah. It's like when I go bowling after a couple of years and you realize, oh, this does require athleticism.
Right, this is actually quite heavy.
My arm hurts really bad. Yeah, I don't think I've touched a typewriter since I was like maybe 7 or something.
Wow. To be fair, I don't play guitar as much as I used to, which also obviously...
Oh, yeah.
Because I was learning guitar at the same time I was learning to type, so, you know, finger strength and all that.
Oh, and plus the calluses that you're going to build up.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, oh, my God. I haven't played in years, and that's on purpose, but, yeah, I'm afraid of that now, if I ever decide to go back.
Oh, I assure you, speaking as somebody who does only pick up the guitar, you know, once every few months, mainly when I need to record something, yeah, you know, your fingers will start bleeding again. Those calluses go away pretty quickly.
Yeah. There are a couple of people that said they had the same experience with a typewriter. They couldn't. It was very difficult.
Oh, that what tried
physically
going back to it and
yeah.
It certainly makes you appreciate. You think back to, you know, guys. I don't know, something like Nabokov or something. You know, who wrote these long novels.
Yeah.
Entirely on typewriters. Although I say that, but actually, back in those days, it was quite common for the authors to write stuff longhand and then give it to somebody else.
I didn't know that.
Quite often their wives to type it up.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people, like even today, like to do the longhand thing, and I understand the appeal of that, but yeah, I didn't know they had other people doing it.
Yeah, it was fairly common. Yeah, Neil Gaiman still writes longhand. Initially, writes his first drafts longhand before typing it up. I make all my notes longhand. You know, I do a lot of plotting and note making longhand. Partly because I just think I get better notes out of it. There's more of a sort of link between, you know, when your hand's moving, and things stick in my memory better when I write them down manually as well. But I don't do any actual drafting longhand. Haven't done for years and years. I do all of that on the computer now.
That makes sense. I mean, at that point, a lot of that stuff is, there's a lot of busy work at that point because you're moving stuff around that you've already thought up.
To an extent, yeah.
So why not use the tools available? John Carpenter ran out.
Oh, is that what we were listening to?
Yeah.
Tron soundtrack on it.
Yeah, Dove has always been my.
Actually, I'll tell you what surprised me is the. Did you ever see the cartoon Tron Legacy?
Oh, I knew they made it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's really good actually. It only ran for, I think they had like 17 episodes and then it was cancelled, which is a shame because it was good.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually recommended to me by Will Wheaton when we were discussing the original Tron on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't seen it at that point, but I then subsequently watched it and yeah, I was really impressed. But what really genuinely impressed me was that the soundtrack to that TV show is better than the soundtrack to the movie.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Got that.
It's clearly building on the Daft Punk soundtrack to Tron Legacy. It's clearly building on that, but I think actually does a better job of being a soundtrack.
Well, let's see.
I don't know if you'll be able to find it on Apple
It's
Music.
Uprising, is that it?
Yeah, that's the one.
No.
Yeah, Legacy was the movie, Uprising was the series. That was it.
Dave says that was a great show. Eric Canetti worked on it.
You can kind of tell,
Hmm.
actually, yeah. I didn't know that, but
I didn't
that
either.
makes absolute sense. Thinking about the character designs and the whole visual design overall,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. And a good cast as well.
Yeah?
It was, yeah, because it was a Disney XD. And what's his face from Lord of the Rings? Main Hobbit guy.
Oh, Elijah Wood?
That's him.
Yeah.
Elijah Wood played the main guy.
Oh.
They got Bruce Boxleitner back to play Tron.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Lance Henriksen was the villain.
Oh.
It was really good cast. And there were a few, some of the sort of minor characters and were people that you've heard of, or people that are at least very well established within voiceover work.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was really good. It was a shame that it was cancelled.
I'm surprised Lance doesn't do more voiceover work. Unless he does and I just don't know about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
He,
Too busy spinning pots.
yeah.
And the other thing, I can't imagine that, and rightly so, but, Lance Henriksen is not going to be cheap.
Yes, right. What was the story of that show?
It was set sort of away from the main action of the movies,
Mm-hmm.
in a sort of what was supposed to be a kind of distant land, if you like, of
Okay.
the grid. And Tron was, because spoilers, in Tron Legacy,
Yeah.
Tron died.
Yes.
But it turned out that he didn't, and he's alive and hiding out like a hermit
Uh-huh.
on this distant part of the grid. And Elijah Wood played a character who starts to basically Lance Henriksen rules this area with an iron fist,
Mm-hmm.
and Elijah Wood's character is becomes a bit rebellious and discovers that Tron is alive,
Mm-hmm.
and adopts the guise of the nom de plume of the renegade,
Okay.
fighting against the oppressive rulers,
Mm-hmm.
but lets everybody think that he is Tron
Oh, okay.
and that Tron is still alive, still fighting, and actually Tron is like a mentor to him instead. You know.
Okay.
It's a bit more complex than that, but you know that's the general gist. But he's also, it is kind of superhero-like in a way because he has a secret identity. Effectively, he also has a regular life and a job repairing the light vehicles and stuff, and you know friends in his real life, and he has to balance, you know, sort of Spider-Man like.
Interesting.
Balance that with his, you know, rebellious fight and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was, you know, it's a YA thing.
Yeah.
You know, but within that context, it was actually pretty smart. You know, quite sort of complex morally, and just really well made.
Yeah.
Really well made.
So you've had Will Wheaton on your show?
Yeah, I kind of know Will.
Oh, that's cool. Look at you.
Yeah. Now, if you can get Charlize on the show.
All you internet nerds know all the famous people. What made you think of doing a podcast about things that people like that other people hate?
Partly it's that there are a lot of things like that for me.
Yeah.
You know, there are lots of things that I really like that other people don't, and I think they dismiss them too easily. You know?
Yeah.
Music,
Mm-hmm.
you know, movies, even some novels
Mm-hmm.
that I really, really rate. That you know,
Mm-hmm.
most people just don't. So there's that. But what actually initially prompted it was a Twitter conversation with my friend Moises, who is a podcaster,
Okay.
runs a podcast network. In fact, I think he was moving house. I think, or he was doing some kind of boxing up of things anyway, and he was listening to Billy Joel's album River of Dreams.
Yeah, I remember that album. Oh, we played it over and over in the record store when I was working there.
Right. Well, I love that album.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
not bad, but I don't know if it's because I had to listen to it 1,000 times.
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a genuinely great album,
Mm-hmm.
but it is generally not liked by hardcore Billy Joel fans.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And I think it's because it doesn't sound like a lot of other Billy Joel stuff, and I think it's really unfair. It is also a bit mawkish in places. It was the last album he made before he and Christy Brinkley split up. And, you know, there are several songs on it which are basically just kind of very sentimental love songs to her. And, of course, then made all bittersweet by the fact that, you know, they split up not long after.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think it's a really great album. So, anyway, I sort of jokingly made some kind of, you know, solidarity brother tweet. You know, because I had no idea that he liked that album as well. And I can't remember the exact exchange, but we had a bit of a back and forth, and I jokingly said, "Oh, I should do a podcast where I tell everybody how wrong they are."
Yeah.
Like, you know, like we should go through albums that I love that, you know, fans don't, and, you know, telling them all how wrong they are not to like these albums. Just joking. And then the seed kind of stuck in my head. And I thought, hang on a second, actually, there could be a show there. But not just about music and not just me, you know, with guests. And so, yeah, I just kind of came up with the outline for the show. And what I initially did was actually invite maybe half a dozen people, friends, basically, and also a couple of people whose podcasts I listened to, because I knew that they would. Basically, what I wanted to do was some pilot recordings to see if the show had legs. You know, see if it could work as a show. And I knew that friends who were podcasters would understand what I was trying to do, and that if it didn't work, that I would just scrap it, and they wouldn't feel they'd wasted their time. Because they'd all had to do the same thing with their shows, you know.
Yes.
Because I didn't want to sort of, waste people's time. And, you know, most people that I asked said, yeah, sounds like a great idea. And a couple of the podcasting friends actually said, not only would I love to do that, but also, would you like to bring that show to our network?
Oh, okay. That's cool.
You know, I like it so much that I'd actually love that to be a part of our network.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just kind of all snowballed from there, really. And I actually ended up using all of the pilot episodes that I recorded. Became the first episode of the show. I didn't scrap any of them.
I don't remember which ones are the ones that I listened to, because I was surprised that you were doing podcasts when I heard about it.
I've been listening to podcasts for years. Years and years. And had kind of toyed with the idea of maybe doing one, but, you know, I didn't really know anything about the logistics of it, and I didn't have a good idea for a show. That's the thing. You know, I don't feel like I'm in a position to do a sort of a teaching show. You know, you get some authors will do little 15, 20-minute shows where they'll give you tips and advice on writing, for example. And I've listened to some of those shows. One in particular, Mike Stackpole, used to do one.
Mike Stackpole, that name sounds very familiar.
He did a lot of Star Wars novels, Battletech novels, but he also writes his own stuff as well. And he did a show years ago called The Secrets, which was named for a newsletter that he used to write and edit, also called The Secrets. So kind of half joking, really. And that was actually really helpful to me when I was writing my second novel. That show, really, really helpful. And I have since met Mike and thanked him for that. But anyway, so that gives you know, I knew that there were shows like that out there, but I've never felt really that I know enough to do that kind of show. And so I thought, well, I need an idea. If I'm going to do a show, I need an idea, and I didn't have an idea, so, you know, I never sort of acted on it. And then, because of this Twitter conversation with Moises, I suddenly had an idea, and I thought, oh, okay, you know, this actually could work. And so, yeah, it just kind of came about organically, really. And I had to sort of give myself a crash course in how to make, record, and edit a podcast.
So that you'd never done one before?
No.
That was your first one?
Yeah.
Oh, so, okay. So it wasn't weird that I thought that it was interesting you had your own podcast.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all, no. I've been a guest on other people's shows, you know, but that was me being interviewed.
You've already been doing that a long time.
What, being interviewed?
No, the podcast.
About 18 months now.
Oh, I feel like it's been around.
No, it was GDC 2015 that we launched it, and I remember launch day literally sitting on the top floor of the Moscone with my iPad, watching people's reactions to the launch of the show. During the lunch hour.
That's funny.
So yeah, I could date it very specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's 18 months. But that's still a fair amount of time to be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to, because I used to make music. It's not that I didn't know anything at all about how to record my voice or anything.
Right.
But recording vocals for a song or whatever are quite different to recording, setting up and recording a podcast conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had to give myself a bit of a crash course in that. And I'm still learning now. It's not like I have a high-end setup or anything. But it's fun. I do it partly because it's not anything to do with my day job.
Yeah.
It's a way of doing something that is deliberately not at all connected to my writing work. That is, also fun and just gives me a bit of downtime.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. I'm trying to remember which episode it was that I started listening to.
Was it one of the Star Wars series? We did a whole series on the Star Wars.
Yeah, and must have been, because that's probably what made me look at it in the first place. Who were the guests on that? You had episode 1, right?
Yeah, the first one was Erica Ensign, who is another podcaster on the same network, actually. She did episode 1. Episode 2 was a guy called Mike Climo, who has a website called Star Wars Ring Theory, in which he argues that the prequels are, vastly misunderstood.
That's funny.
And that Lucas is actually a genius storyteller who made these concentric, mirroring story decisions around the prequels. I disagree with his premise, but he was a great guest to have on because it was just such an interesting theory. And then episode 3 was Brianna Wu, the game designer.
Huh. I have to have heard it. I've been on the Star Wars Minute with Alex Robinson every movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love that show. And anybody that talks about Star Wars, maybe it was BioShock. I think it might have been BioShock. You had 2. You did 2.
Oh, no, that was only a few weeks ago.
Okay, then wasn't that then?
We did.
When you did you?
Dragon Age 2 was the first video game I think that we did.
Okay.
That was with Liz Miles, who's a author and podcaster from Scotland.
I'm looking through all of these now, and now I want to listen to them.
I was going to say, if you love Star Wars, we also, not on my show, but on the main Incomparable show, we did a dissection of the second Rogue One trailer.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I mean, they do dissections of all the Star Wars trailers on that show.
Yeah.
And all the movies. And I headed up, we did 3 shows on the network, all about Force Awakens, with different people on each show, different panels. And I headed up the sort of mostly British contingent.
That's pretty cool.
But the guys who usually do the trailer dissections weren't available because of when it dropped. People were on vacation, travelling, whatever, so they couldn't do one for the Rogue One second trailer. But I am really looking forward to that movie, so I offered to do one with a sort of a different crew. And we presented it as a rebel insurgence of, rebel podcasters taking over from the usual crew. And that was nearly a 2-hour show about a 90-second trailer.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was a lot of fun.
You, I know you did Superman 3, but
yes,
you really ought to have. Do you know Art Baltazar?
I know the name.
All Yeah Comics guy.
Right.
Did all the Tiny Titans, and he's a personality. But I listened to him explain why Superman 4 is better than Superman 3 and is actually a good movie. And when he was done, I think I believed him.
That's great. That's
He's amazing. He pointed out so many things that I was like, oh my God, you're right. I thought that movie was terrible. It may just be that he's a good talker.
Well, indeed. Yeah, the Superman 3 one was fun because I love that movie.
Yeah,
I love Superman 3.
When I was a kid, I thought it was great.
Yeah. And rewatching it, I was like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't seen it for, God, 20 years or so.
Well, I think when I watched it again, I think all the stuff that I was remembering that was bad was from 4. It's like, oh, this is not what the movie I thought it was.
Right. One of my favorite episodes was Hudson Hawk.
Oh, yeah?
Because that's a perfect example of what I was talking about. I have always loved
that
Hudson
movie's
Hawk.
not a bad movie.
I think
it's just a weird movie.
Not just not bad, I think it's actually a great movie.
Yeah.
I really do. But, of course, almost nobody else thinks
Yeah.
that. But another of the guys from the podcast network, Dan Moran, who's a tech writer and frequent podcaster, I invited him on and he wanted to... Oh, no, that was it. No, I'd heard him talking on another show about how he loved Hudson Hawk.
Yeah.
So when I decided that the show was going to go ahead, he was one of the very first people
Yeah.
that I subsequently emailed and said, I want you to come on and talk about Hudson Hawk because I love that movie too.
Yeah,
And
even...
you are the only other person I know who loves it as much as me.
Yeah, that actor Paul Scheer has that How Did This Get Made podcast.
Right.
And they did Hudson Hawk, and I think at the end of that, even they all agreed, is like, this isn't a bad movie.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. It just wasn't at all what people were expecting.
Yeah, it's like you spend a lot of money on making a movie at that time. It better be something that people really get, and that was not a mass audience movie.
No, not at all. And, Bruce Willis was just coming off of, Die Hard.
Yeah.
So, really, his audience were not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
But there was, around the same time, Sylvester Stallone did a movie called Oscar.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater.
Yeah, and I think that, again, I wouldn't say that's a great movie, but it's a good movie. But it was not at all what his audience wanted, and so it bombed.
Yeah. That's the gangster and his daughter's getting married?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater. I don't know why I saw that in the theater.
I didn't see it in the theatre, but I did see it on VHS, pretty much as soon as it was available.
I must have been on a date or something. It was probably like a first date or something. Because that was a long time ago.
I was going to see a comedy, yeah. But yeah, as I say, there are lots of things like that where, I love something and I can't understand why everybody else doesn't.
Yeah, there's always stuff like that.
I remember at the time, in what would it have been 93, 94, when Metallica's album Load came out. I remember arguing on Usenet, that dates me, with people that actually this was a great album and was going to be a pivotal moment in Metallica's career, and that in 10 years' time people would look back and realise that it was a great album, just not the album they were expecting after, obviously, the phenomenal success of the Black Album. And I was absolutely right. Come at me. I was 100% correct.
Is that how people see it now, I think?
Yeah.
Okay.
It regularly gets, top 3, top 5 in people's all-time favourite Metallica albums.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't followed them since And Justice and For All. I wasn't a big guy for the Black Album.
Well, this is the thing. A lot of people, like that. And I was one of those guys. I got into them around the time of Master of Puppets and Justice. Yeah.
Sure.
And a lot of guys like us of that generation, just, the Black Album was already a step beyond.
Yeah.
And then Load was just completely beyond the pale.
Mm-hmm.
But they got so many new fans with the Black Album, and those fans they didn't have those preconceived notions and those prejudices. And so to them, Load was just a great rock and roll album.
Yeah. It is hard for... that happens in all kinds of art. I think that happens in comics all the time.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It happens in all sort of creative endeavors, doesn't it?
Anytime somebody's rebooted, kind of have to tell myself this isn't. Every Blue Beetle title I read, I have to remember that that's not for me. That's for somebody else.
Yeah. Well, that's I had Andy Anupko on the show talking about he was defending Reed Richards.
Just in general?
Well, yeah, just in general. Because the common sort of these days, the common characterization of Richards is that he's a kind of cold, distant dick.
Yeah.
I
guess you're right. Yeah.
And Andy is like, he's our age, a little older, actually.
Yeah.
And, he grew up reading the Fantastic Four in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's not my Reed Richards.
Yeah.
But he acknowledges, the reason you reminded me is he acknowledges that times have changed.
Yeah.
And he's not saying that it should now be written for guys like him.
Yeah.
He sort of accepts that that's not what it is anymore.
Yeah.
And he can always go back and read the collections of the old Fantastic Four that he enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. Yeah.
I'll have to listen to
And he made a very compelling argument.
Yeah.
But there are the other thing I was going to say about motivation for doing the show was that, and I get asked this a lot. A lot of people, a lot of listeners say like, "Oh, this is great, but wouldn't it be fun to do sort of a show that's the opposite, where you take something that everybody loves and that you hate and tear it down?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, there are thousands.
People suggested that.
Oh yeah, all the time, yeah. But there are thousands of podcasts, blogs, even TV shows.
Yeah, there's
dedicated to exactly that.
There's too much snark.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's and I'm not knocking those shows at all.
No,
that's not what I want to do.
It says a lot that the idea of finding the good in something is novel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I like, the internet is full of negativity, and I would like to be a force for good.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think I've always thought it was a fun idea. How often do you put those out?
Now it's one every 2 weeks. It was weekly for approximately the first year, but then my schedule started to get a bit out of control.
Yeah.
And yeah, now it's one every 2 weeks. But it is, we've never missed an episode. It's regular as clockwork. I'm kind of surprised you guys don't do a studio show or something.
We played around with it, like when the iOS guy here, Josh, was here, he was big on it, and we recorded a couple episodes that we had on the studio blog that were all about process of certain. And he was running it. He would come up with subjects to talk about, and he was
right.
But once he was gone, we didn't really have a motivation to keep it going.
Right, he was the driving force.
Yeah. I mean, it was a neat idea, but we only ended up doing like 3 of them.
Right. That is the issue, is that, again, talking about you see this a lot. People start a podcast and you can tell that they don't really have a concept.
Yeah.
They're just sort of shooting the shit, and that's fine, that's like, can still be an enjoyable show.
Yeah.
But it's very easy. Those shows quite often die out quite quickly when they kind of run out of things to say.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a concept, if you have a notion of, okay, we're going to discuss a work, or we're going to address a process issue each episode, that sort of, and somebody is driving that, then you can keep a show going.
Oh, that's what you want. You want the people that don't that are getting into it just because they thought this was a neat idea. You want them to go away, and the people that are interested in creating something to make something.
Right.
You know, the ones that get into it and say, oh, this is not what I thought it would be. I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, there was the guys at... I'm struggling to remember the studio name. The guys who ended up doing Bioshock Infinite, Ken Levine's studio.
Uh-huh.
My memory's failing me. I can't remember the name of the studio.
I don't remember either.
But they did a sort of more or less monthly, it was never on a regular schedule, more or less monthly show while they were developing Bioshock Infinite that was largely one of the production manager guys who had a background in journalism or broadcast or something, interviewing people like Ken Levine and other various people involved in the project.
Mm-hmm.
And he would pick the topics and ask the questions and stuff, and then so it was more like they were being interviewed, but they were being interviewed by a colleague.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, they stopped doing it once the game approached release. But that was, I loved that because that was a real insight into, you know, how those guys worked, and the guy who was running the show, as I say, who was like setting the topics and asking the questions, was good, and you know, kept it moving along and kept it interesting.
Yeah, anytime I can get inside the head of somebody doing something I really like, I'm more interested in that. Jerry and Mike of Penny Arcade used to do a podcast where they just recorded them brainstorming the strip.
Oh, yeah, that was a video show, wasn't it?
Well, it became a video show.
Oh, okay.
But they don't. They don't put it out regularly. I don't see many episodes.
Right.
But I love that. That was awesome.
I watched, the first, I didn't realize that they'd done it as an audio thing before, but when it went to video, I watched the first, 2 seasons.
Yeah, with the video, they actually put the a time lapse of the drawing at the end, too.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, the original, when the podcast, you'd have to go to the website and see what they ended up doing.
Right. But yeah, I agree. That was fascinating for the same reason. Yeah, I think it's. I mean, obviously, fans do love peeking behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But you do also find people who do the same sort of thing for a living.
Yeah.
We all like seeing how other people work.
Yeah, sure.
You know, we all love seeing other people's process.
Mm-hmm.
I think partly because we're all looking for shortcuts for our own process.
Yeah.
We're all looking for other ways to try things ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But also just because, this is our lives, and it's fascinating to see how other people achieve the same sort of results.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I got into this, the streaming here, because I saw that they were doing it on Twitch, and I was like, I started watching people because I want to see how people are drawing in Manga Studio, because as long as I've been drawing this with this program, not as long as it's been around, because it's been around for a while, but I've been doing it for 8 years now, and I still just do the basic out of the box. I don't do super tricks and stuff like that I know 14-year-olds are doing.
Yeah. I'm like that with Scrivener, the writing app that I use.
I just started using that. I love it.
was one of the first Scrivener users, full stop, and I'm pretty sure that I was very confident that I was the first pro comics guy to use it. Because it was designed as a tool for novelists.
Yeah.
But the developer added in a sort of final draft script writing function. Not as an afterthought. That's not fair to say that, because it was very well implemented. But that clearly wasn't the main focus of the program.
Yeah.
But I tried it out, and immediately I was like, oh, this is the app for me.
Yeah.
This is how I think. This is how I work. I can use this, really to my advantage. And I've been a great advocate for it. My template actually is now included with the app. If you go and look at the script writing templates, there is a comic script template.
Oh, that's yours?
Which is mine, yeah. And I should point out for anybody listening on the stream, I do not receive any compensation for that. I don't even get free licenses of the app. I don't want them. It only costs $50.
Yeah.
This is a tool I use literally every day to write everything.
Yeah.
You know, and it costs $50. It's ridiculously cheap. So yeah, I love that app. But to your point, I basically figured out how to use it to do what I want to do, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
right.
I know that I'm only using maybe 20%
Yeah, that's the thing.
of the full capability of that app. And that's fine. I don't care about the rest of it.
Yeah.
I see other people writing blog posts of tutorials and stuff of how they use it, and they are way more complex users of it than me.
Yeah.
Go way deeper into what it can do.
Yeah. That's fine.
I've actually, if you are starting to use it, I have got a couple of articles on my website in the For Writers section, which detail how I use Scrivener to
I will
write
definitely check that out then.
and my sort of process and stuff.
That's mostly black?
No, that hasn't for years.
Sorry.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow.
What is it then?
It's just my name.
Oh,
Just
Antony Johnston.
AntonyJohnston.com.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I haven't had mostly black for nearly 10 years now.
Oh my God. No, we have known each other a long time.
Yeah. No, I kind of regret, because there are still some people who look for me under that name, and I do kind of regret letting the domain lapse now, because it's just like some link spam, you know. So,
I wonder if I've tried to send you email at that.
Oh wow, I hope.
I wonder if I've tried to do that any time in the past.
Wow.
That's funny.
Yeah, this was back when, frankly, I didn't have, $30 a year to keep a domain registered.
Yeah.
Was a sort of serious financial consideration. So I let it lapse when I switched everything over to AntonyJohnston.com. And I do kind of regret that now, because, there are still people who remember me from that name.
Yeah.
But that was the name I used to design under.
Right.
Whenever I did freelance design for many years, that was the credit that I'd use. Before I even became a writer. Or before I became a full-time writer, I should say. Have you still got IHateMike.com?
Yeah. That's
Wow.
still my main thing. Mike Norton never became available. I think is still a real estate agent out in California.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I look from time to time.
Is that why you called yours I Hate Mike?
It was the reason why I thought of something else.
Right.
I Hate Mike I would guess I was probably feeling pretty down on myself, or...
Oh, I thought maybe it was a reference to him. To the real
Oh,
estate.
no, it was
For
not me
banging your
hating him.
domain.
No. I was looking for something that people would remember without a business card.
Right.
Because people always say, like, the business card thing doesn't happen a lot. I mean, it's like, let me find a business card. Oh, no. Remember this. And there's like, nobody remembers it. So I was trying to think of something that people would at least laugh at.
Right.
And then try and...
I've always remembered it, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that URL. So you did your job there.
I remember back in the Warren Ellis message board days, Larry Young would give me, he thought it was terrible. He's like, that's the worst. I mean, it's so unprofessional.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm still making comics there.
No, I do. I know what you mean about business cards, but I am that guy. Whenever I'm at a con.
Well, no, that means you're smarter than me. I just always forget them.
I don't know. Well, I have cards. Yeah, I've got some with me here now. But no, what I was going to say was I'm that guy who I do the business card swap at cons, and every night when I then go back to my hotel room, I will take out the cards, take a pen, and I literally write on the business cards something that helps me remember who that person was.
For real?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, dude.
It works. It really works. Because otherwise, I'll get home and start going through the business cards I've taken, putting them into my contact list or whatever. And half of them I'd look at and go, I don't remember anything about this person.
Yeah, I don't know this.
Because it's no fault of theirs. I have a terrible memory, is what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas if I go back that night and write down, I don't know, even if it's something like tall guy, glasses, leather jacket, that's enough for me to go, oh yeah, that guy.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I feel like that would only confuse me more.
Little life hacks, as they call them.
Life hack.
Yeah.
Life hacking
That's
myself.
That's what the kids call them.
The kids are all about the life hacks. And I'm going to draw this snow and then we can be done in here.
Apparently it's raining in California, judging by my timeline full of Californians going, "Water is falling from the sky! What is this?"
All right, I think I'm done. Well, for today.
You're switching off now.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, dude.
Bye, everyone.
Aw.